The master tracker file consists of many columns. The first one is month data received or month entry made. This this column contains the values of the months in which the data is being recorded. For example, if this were the month of July, you'd select July from the drop-down list. The supplier name consists of the name of the supplier you're recording. The region column refers to the value that is linked with this supplier in the backend sheet, which is called invoice generator. This sheet consists of all the links between the suppliers and the values that are always fixed or linked to that supplier. The month data for column consists of the month for which you're recording the values. For example, this row would mean that you have received the monthly volumes for the supplier Schreiber for the month of May, and you're recording that value in the month of July. The year value represents the year in which you've received the data, so in this case it's 2016. The quarter column contains the quarter for the corresponding month data for month, and this can be updated by selecting the update quarter values button at the top. The supplier ID values are linked again to the backend, the invoice generator sheet. The invoice schedule is also linked to the invoice generator sheet. Now the volume status is either yes or no from the drop down list. Initially, when the month begins, you would have to copy down all the suppliers that are in the, so this is the invoice generator sheet, and you'd copy down all the suppliers from here to the supplier master sheet. You would record the month as the month in which you have copied the values, and you would then record this value here as no. So the volume status would be no initially, and then as and when you receive the monthly volumes, you just go to this corresponding supplier and you make it a yes from a no. So initially when it's no, you'd have an amber cell highlight color in the amount to be invoice column, and then you make it a yes to make it white. The amount to be invoice column refers to the amounts that are present in the for the corresponding supplier. This is the service fee amounts that is calculated from the corresponding volumes. To get this value, you should do the following. Let's say this supplier is assessor. You would go to the assessor tab in the master tracker file, which is here. You'd go to the corresponding month value. So let's say we're looking at May 2016, and you would say equal to this cell, so BF5 in assessor. So that's how you would link this sheet. As you can see, this has been already linked to assessor BF5, and this is what you would do for all the suppliers when you first copy them down for that particular month. So and initially this would be a 0, so there would be no value, but when you first copy down the cells, the suppliers, make sure that you link each of these cell values to the corresponding amount value in the supplier tab or sheet within the master tracker file. Going to the next section of this report, you have the need for remainder and escalation columns. So this tells you all the suppliers that need to be sent out a first reminder, a second reminder, or an escalation, depending on whether the volumes have been received until a certain time frame. To look at when to use the reminders, please refer to the update service tracker SOP guide that will tell you when exactly to use these buttons. However, before sending out any reminders, click first before sending reminder button. That will reset all the yes and no values accordingly. So as you can see, here we have yes for some of these suppliers because they haven't yet sent in reminders. Once they would send in reminders, you would make this volume state as yes for that corresponding reminder, and you can see that this cell has these cells have already been linked with the corresponding supplier sheet. And when you make the volumes a yes and then click this button, this the yes from the send need to send first reminder column disappears. So when you click the first send reminder button, it only sends reminders to suppliers that have a yes in the need for first reminder column. Now if you scroll to the extreme right, you see a first reminder sent date. This refers to the date in which the button was clicked and the reminder email was generated. So when you click these buttons, an Outlook email is generated for each of those supplier rows, and it is not repeated again. So once you send the first reminder to a supplier, the same supplier would not be sent a first reminder the second time. Similarly, the second reminder and escalation email buttons work. The next column you have is invoice creation status. Here you have four options: to be sent, not applicable, cannot send, and sent. When you have volumes that are no for a supplier, then the value that you would put here is this cannot send, because you cannot send the data. If you were having the volumes that are a yes and the invoice schedule is monthly, that means you are invoicing the amounts for that supplier in the month. So the status would be to be sent. Whenever you click to be sent or sent, an X appears automatically in the create invoice column. However, when a supplier is quarterly or biannually, the invoice schedule, so if the supplier schedule is such, then it is always not applicable. This shows, what this shows is it tells the tool that this particular row is not, it's not applicable to be invoiced, because this amount is a quarterly amount, so you don't have to invoice it. However, you may ask, where do we invoice the quarterly suppliers? For that, there are separate rows in the month data for column only for the invoice. So for example here, if you look at the month data for, you have the months, then you have special values called Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 invoice, and biannual and annual invoice. So every supplier, I've created a row, and you would have to create one, say for the next year, which would be like, so for example, com group, and you have the Q1 invoice, then you have com group Q2 invoice, and similarly Q3 and Q4 invoice. And you would go to the Q3 invoice of the Q1 invoice of the respective supplier. You would make the volumes a yes if all the 3 months prior to that month's invoice have been received, and this would be a to be sent. So all the monthly values for the quarterly or biannual invoices, or even annually, you would make it not applicable, and the quarterly value of that supplier invoice, you'd make it a to be sent.